Shembe yo e bego e le naga ya ditaola ke yena a thomile go kereke ya Nazareta ka ngwaga wa 1990 se se diragatse ka morago ga mengwaga e se mekae a sokolotong pele ka batlhami ba ba builego gona pele ga gago le yena o itiretse tša gagwe ditsela ka mokgwa wa setho le ge khuetso ya sekgowa e kwagala go tsona motho a ka ipotsiša gore dintlha tšeo di ikgethago mo mminong wa setso wa batho baso ke dife bontši bja ditsela tša Shembe go na le seo motho a ka rego ke pitšo le karabo moruti o eta phuthego pele ka go opelwa gomme phuthego e tšweletša seo se boletšego ke modimo o ke ona mokgwa wa go opela o o tlwaelegilego gare ga batho baso ga mmogo le morethetho o o tsenletšego mminong gape go šomišwa le meropa banasareta ba tumiša modimo ka koša le go bina fela difela ka moka tšeo di le go bukong ya difela ya esentlhabelelo tsa Nazareta di tlhamilwe ke Shembe mathomong a ngwagakgolo setlhopha sa gagwe sa go bina seo se bego se tsebega ka gore ke Amakgoja o ile a se tlhamela tsela e ntšha ya go bina bona re ba bona ka moaparo o mobotse o ikgethago diputsi diroko tšeo e ka rego ke dihempe disekete tše di fitlhago matolong mengatse ya basadi mola banna bona ba rwele dihelemete banna le basadi ba bina ba swere magao a dirilego ka letlalo la kgomo basadi ba bina ba swere disambrela mola banna bona ba bina ba swere melamo ya ntwa.
They have started a new Christian community and whose wisdom created a satisfactory compromise between two religious points of view, the African and the European. He died some 20 years ago. His son, Galilee Shembe, is now head of the community, and he leads them, about 1,000 strong, men, women, and children, on their annual pilgrimage to their holy places. They wind their way through these valleys, between the steep hills which are so typical of Zulu country. They pass scores of peaceful little villages, each built in a circle around the cattle kraal. Early on the third day, they arrive at the head of the Mhloti Valley. There, in a great semicircle of surrounding hills, stands Nhlangakazi, their sacred mountain, serene and lonely. Here, far up on the slopes of the hill, they build themselves a camp where they live for a full fortnight in every kind of weather. Zulu fashion, they divide themselves into groups, the men and boys high up among the rocks, the women and girls lower down. Everyone helps to build their small shelters and bivouacs. Some bring heavy loads of firewood, and others bring up bundles of reeds or sticks from the river valley below. And in addition, of course, the women must do the ordinary work of the village, fetching water, looking after the children, and washing the family clothes. The followers of Shembe believe in the necessity for voluntary work for the common good. This year, they have dug for themselves over a mile of new road so that they could carry their food and equipment for the campers closer to the foot of their hill. The tune they are chanting while they work is a Zulu hymn, and those who have no tools to work with pick up stones or sticks and help to level out the road with these. Amos Shembe, the second son of the prophet, points out the sacred places on the hill, and in particular, those places where his father saw his visions. There are 5 of them. First is this boulder, near the top, where the prophet hid when the men of a local clan and their dogs hunted him to drive him off the hill or kill him. And next is this spot where Shembe used to sit all day and all night for the whole 2 weeks during the first 9 or 10 pilgrimages. Here, in this circle of stones, he used to sit in prayer and contemplation, looking out over the great valley below. He was very fond of the local flowers, and he used to tell his people that if they were poor, and had no gift to bring to the church, the Lord would be just as pleased with a small bunch of wild flowers. And here is the spot where Shembe knelt in prayer, and where the Lord appeared to him in several visions like Moses of old. It was here that he consecrated his first evangelists. Each man placed one of these stones to mark his dedication to the church. And this is the pilgrim's cairn of stones. Each stone on this heap represents one completed pilgrimage by one of his followers. The last of the 5 sacred places on the hill is the altar, which Shembe built at their open-air place of worship out on the northern spur of the hill, 1,000 feet above the Mhlote Valley below. Each year, it is repaired and covered with new flowers after the ravages of the heavy thunderstorms and gales which sweep around this exposed and lonely peak. This is the call to prayer from one of the old white-haired evangelists in Porbo. And they reply, Amen. Wezulu. Walking slowly up the hill, they all kneel at one of the prayer stones at the turn of the path. It's a custom of the community of Shembe for everyone to be dressed in white at their services. The men and boys wear short white surplices, and the women and girls a white cotton overgarment. Galilee Shembe, the present head of the church, prepared himself to take the service. The people are now ready, seated on the ground out on the northern shoulder of the hill, and so Shembe, a lonely, solemn figure, leaves his hut and walks along the cliff path to go and preach to his people. A modern Sermon on the Mount. The subject of his sermon was the virtue of participation. Everyone, he says in Zulu, everyone who has walked to Nhlangakazi on this pilgrimage knows what it is to participate in this spiritual journey. And not even the devil himself can take that knowledge away from you. Now is the time to put on their fine beads. For any Zulu woman, her beads are her most precious possession. From far up above comes the voice of Odin Porbo, calling them again to come up the mountain, this time to dance their Christian dances. First, they climb up to the spur of the hill where they hold their services. And there, before the altar covered with flowers, they pray before going on to dance. After the women come the men, also with their drums. Most of them dressed in the old-fashioned Zulu country costumes with gallant sakabula feather headdresses. Some of the older married women place flowers on the spot, the Templini, as they call it, where Shembe had his visions. And now they divide themselves into regiments in their age groups, men by themselves and women by themselves, and begin their Christian dance. These are the married women. And these, the elder unmarried girls. While these are the youngest of them, the young girls between the ages of 14 and 17. One of them plays a homemade trumpet, made out of a length of copper piping. The steps of this Christian dance are simple and modest, and much quieter than the steps of the normal Zulu country dance. They keep dancing with reverence and rapt attention all through the day until nightfall. Even grandfather is still taking part. Married women are distinguished by the thick clusters of white beads which hang down over their shoulders. They too have a bamboo horn to reinforce the rhythmic pulses of the drums. Several of them wear aprons with texts printed on them. This one has the 10 Commandments and the text, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy." Shembe himself comes out to lead the dancing of one of the groups of women. The dance leader gives him her small dance shield. Ever since this Christian dancing began, they've always danced with black umbrellas held in their right hand. They hold their final ceremony. All the little offerings of wild flowers have been heaped together in one place, ready for burning. And singing their last hymn, they surge over towards the cairn to place their stones, and marching round the fire, they inhale its aromatic white smoke. evangelist will pour over his hand, following the example of Shembe, so that they can put their stone and small grass head ring onto the cairn with clean hands. And so ends one of the most strange and reverent of modern religious ceremonies, devised by Zulus, the followers of Shembe, for their own African form of Christian worship. On this lonely hilltop, high up in the